welcome to Lamakaan. We are celebrating 15 years and we're very happy to have you all over here. We are an open cultural space for those who don't know. Welcome to Lamakaan for newcomers as well. This is a really nice opportunity to have such a nice full house to start events. We have done a lot of workshops of painting and fabric exhibitions. We have yearly annual event lineups, and we also do literary events. There's an event that we do called Bazme Sukhan. Online, it's every Tuesday. You can get in touch with Amir Ullah Khan for that, who's going to be sitting with us today over here. And on offline, we have it every second Wednesday of the month. We celebrate Urdu poetry in that session. We also do Lamakaan Amateur Radio Club conventions every year in December. And we have a lot of people coming in to perform plays. Yesterday was Kathak, and we also had a very wonderful play in the morning about the farmer suicide. And we, as you can see, we had a very good lineup of ghazal singing and with Zainab. And we also had Aradhana ji this morning, who is our in-house teacher. So without any further delay, let me first introduce our four remaining Lamakaan staff, Samira, Dilip, Jitender, and Basant, to introduce themselves. Please come here on stage.
गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन, मेरा नाम समीरा है. मैं यहाँ 3 साल से काम कर रही हूँ लामाकान में एज अ कैशियर. आप सबका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया लामाकान में 15th एनुअल सेलिब्रेशन के लिए.
नमस्कार, मैं जितेंद्र महापात्र मुझे एनिमेशन में स्वागत करता हूँ.
हेलो, नमस्कार सभी को. नमस्कार, मेरा नाम बसंत मुदुली. मैं उड़ीसा में आया हूँ. 15 एनुअल फंक्शन में आपको स्वागतम. गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन. लमाकान दीजिए ओपन कल्चरल प्लेस. लमाकान में चाय और समोसा फेमस है. और क्या बोलूँ. नमस्ते.
Hello everyone, my name is Dilip Kumar. I am working still 2 months here, and thank you for coming 15th anniversary, joining, and thank you everyone.
Thank you, Lamakaan, for introducing yourselves. Let me now invite Victor and Vijay Krishna Acharya. Sorry, the nickname just comes out. So let me invite Vijay Krishna Acharya onto the stage, and Amir Ullah Khan as well. Amir Ullah Khan is the co-founder of Bazme Sukhan, and he also runs a very lovely organization called CDPP, which he will elongate for me because my working memory is a bit short with all the lineups. And I will also ask Vijay Krishna Acharya to come onto the stage. He's a film director, producer of stuff we have watched on television. आप यहाँ बैठिए. आप यहाँ बैठिए. He's one of
Thanks so much, Rayan. That was well done. Okay, so all of you, first exercise is for you. Each one of you, take a minute, think of your top 5 Hindi movies. Keep them in your head. I'll come back to you. But think about, make the list of 5. Let me move to, I'll give you 20 seconds. So, let me move to the spotlight to the person on whom it should be. Victor, who gave us some fabulous cinema over the last little more than 15 years. So he's slightly older than Lamakaan. And you heard the soundtrack of one of the most fabulous series that so many of you children grew up with. So Victor, let's jump in. And my first question to you is that is Hindi cinema at its worst right now?
So first up, thank you, Lamakaan. Thank you, Amir. Lovely to be here for the 15th anniversary. और आप सब लोगों का शुक्रिया जो आप हम लोग को यहाँ इज़्ज़त देने आए. मैं तो हैदराबाद मेरी ससुराल है तो मैं तो थोड़ा डरा ही हुआ हूँ. कुछ गलत ना बोल दूँ, but hopefully today is not that day. Yes, so I think I completely agree. I think right now Hindi cinema is in its in a creative crisis. But having said that, फिल्मों के बारे में एक ही चीज़ फिल्मों से ज़्यादा मशहूर है, वो ये कि वो ख़राब होती हैं और हमेशा उनमें एक क्राइसिस होती है, which is, you know, it's natural because there is a certain and I think that's something which is central to us as well, central to us Indians. I think there is a little element of self-loathing, and it does come with things which are enjoyable. So yes, I think it is at its at one of its lowest ebbs. I think there is a big crisis, but that, according to me, is great, because this is the time that one needs to look at and see what is it that we want to say, what are the stories that we can tell, and you have to be fearless because there are all the rules of the game are no longer working. So boldness is where it lies, but then of course we are all controlled by means of production and economics, and that actually is what holds you back.
And he did not mention the politics, so we'll come to that. Right? That's what holds us all back right now. But paradoxically, and this is, I borrow from something you mentioned earlier, paradoxically, we in Hyderabad seem to be at our best. Is the Telugu cinema doing, everything right?
I think right now, purely from a box office perspective, Telugu films, Telugu stars have been doing very well. Some of it is, nothing happens immediately and nothing happens by chance or accident. There is a whole industry which looks at Telugu cinema or Tamil cinema and dubs it, and these things are available on YouTube and on other cheaper platforms. So there is an audience which we have, at least in Hindi films, because I think Hindi films became far more, how should I put it? They got too smart for their own good, perhaps. Most of the people who were making films were making them with a certain nod to a Western education, and a few things, the concerns were not truly Indian. So I think where we are seeing Telugu cinema's strength is in its rooted stories. Whether it is your sensibility or mine, that is perhaps in question, but it is rooted, and the emotional context of it cannot be denied.
Fascinating you say that, because I know this one chap who made this really non-rooted movie which did fabulously well. It was called Dhoom 3. So how do you explain that success?
Actually, and this one I can safely say, Dhoom 3 at its heart is is a revenge story. But for me, and one of my partners in crime, the cinematographer, is right here, Shudeep Chatterjee. But I think the villain in Dhoom 3 were banks. And that, I think, we can start a quiz from here, but I think the answer will be सबसे बड़ा चोर तो बैंक ही होता है ना. So that with the revenge, and that actually is the root of the film. So when I say rooted emotions, I think when films don't strike us emotionally, they can be cerebral. Of course, I'm a big fan of Kieslowski, but he's the only one who makes cerebral stories into very emotive, really beautiful ones. The idea of film viewing is like this. It's communal. We all get out of our houses, we go somewhere, we brave the traffic, we buy tickets, we sit amongst strangers in a dark room watching images on a white bed sheet, pretty much. I mean, it's glorified, but we are all ready to go that route. And we are ready to do it because we want to feel something. We want to know what that person is. We were talking about Dilip Kumar, we were talking about Amitabh Bachchan earlier. They become, some of our own anxieties get sublimated. And I think that's the reward. If we get to do that, whether we do it well or badly, I think that's its own reward. So I think somewhere that's the strength of storytelling. It's not about stardom, it's not about this. And I'm grateful to the gods and to the people who made Dhoom 3 a hit, because it allowed me to make the next couple of films. Otherwise, box office success, every filmmaker, everybody in their hearts wants it, but no one wants to cheapen themselves for it. And that's, I think, that's the ultimate conflict for any of us.
The reason I bring in Dhoom 3 right away is because in 2005 there was this very famous economist called Raghuram Rajan who told us that something is going to happen. And then came this even more famous economist, Victor, who said that, these banks are the problem. 2007. And 2008, the euro crisis, the banks just collapsed. You saw it coming?
No, I didn't.
But Victor, the point I'm making is that, one of the most unsung things about cinema, especially Indian cinema, has been that Indian cinema in a lot of ways has been prescient, has forecast issues without us realizing it. I remember this film called Roti. Roti, not the money calls, but the Rajesh Khanna. And, it came a few months before one of the biggest famines that hit us. And the whole film is about, rations, and you have to see. So those of you who are economists, see Roti. There is a whole lecture that Mumtaz gives on the futility of importing wheat under the PL 480 scheme from the United States. It's such a brilliant piece of dialogue, and she does it fabulously well. So the point is that that you see a lot of cinema, and your cinema has been, guilty of that, of showing us where we stand and where we are heading to. So I want to know from somebody who's had a formidable career, making some really milestone movies, that where does it come from? How do you visualize a movie? Do you see the whole 3 hours? Do you make small snippets, subroutines, and put them together, put in some item songs and somehow thread it, or do you have the entire story in mind? Because the reason I'm asking this is because here is somebody who's not just a producer or a director. He's written stories, written dialogues, he's written lyrics. So everything. I don't know. I think next he'll come as the main hero. But but how do you do that? Your brand of making movies.
I think, to answer it the most honestly that I can, um, the bigger picture emerges. It comes in small fragments, and inevitably there's a territory that you want to get into, and that territory for me is sometimes conceptual. The trick is in seeing whether it marries entertainment, because there's something that Javed Saab had said, I think as succinctly as only he can, where he said कि मुझे हिट फिल्म बनाने का फॉर्मूला तो नहीं मालूम, लेकिन फ्लॉप फिल्म बनाने के दो श्योर शॉर्ट फॉर्मूले। पहला ये कि उसमें अगर आपने सोचा कि मैं किसी और चीज को मैं कॉपी करके बना दूं, और दूसरा ये कि मैं इस फिल्म के द्वारा मैं कुछ मैसेज दे दूं। And and uh, and how he explained that I thought was really quite wonderful, because he said the moment you think कि मैं कुछ करूंगा, मैं लोगों को बताऊंगा, you have thought of yourself as higher than the audience, and that actually is the biggest pitfall for anybody who's creative, or even in the academic. You go to learn from a student, rather than. So the process is tiresome, and I think writers are by nature a pain for the other people. I mean, we think that we are wonderful people, like the sun shines every day with us, but we are hard to live with, and I think our partners will sort of bear the fact. But it's really, it's the small bits, and the small pieces come. So if we talk about Dhoom, the first Dhoom was written really for a lark, because at that point of time the Hindi films that were doing well were all very strong, either big drama or love stories, or there are three pillars to what is a classic film: drama, romance, and conflict. Doom 1 had none of these. It had three heroes who had not had a collective hit between the three of them for years. So it was truly liberating, and we wrote a film which was just fun. And the cool thing about it was bikes, and I've broken my collarbone on a bike, so I kind of enjoy that aspect. But that's pretty much it. The fact that the film became successful allowed us to go into some other territories, and that is important with film. A certain acceptance can open the door for exploration, or it can imprison you into saying, oh, this has worked, and let me just do it each time. Let me just get another bike. Each time it's going to be some other hero. I mean, which pretty much is what happens. But I think the prescient bit about Hindi films, I think that's something for us to look at. I think the anxieties of the present age are perhaps not as well reflected. But if we just look at the films which we all think has a slight agenda, which is either borderline right-wing or just right-wing, or is funded by them, or whatever it might be, that means that there is a political choice. And some of it is working, not all. But some of it does hit. So that means it is the anxiety of some people. Are we then, as liberal, intelligent people, forgetting that these could be anxiety? There's a film called Article 370. I don't know if any of you have seen it. I haven't. Okay. The film did well. For its size, for whatever it did. There is another film called Sabarmati Report, which I couldn't go and see. But for the size of the film that it has done enough number for me to feel, okay, this, whether it's a fiction or whether it's truth, there is a certain section of the audience which feels that we must go and see this film because it addresses those concerns. It addresses those anxieties. It's all going to be more propagandist than anything else. But that also comes from anxiety.
All right. So one volunteer from the audience, please. Yeah. Sanjay, Your top 5 movies. What? Masoom, go ahead, go ahead. First, top 5. Hira Moti. Huh. Good, good. Uncle. All right. I mean, thanks so much. That was just to get the audience in, right? So,
Now, based on these, we are going to analyze you very quickly. And,
and know what's the 6th movie that you're going to make. So, um, he's named all 5 that he has seen. So, that brings me to one of the most important movies you made, or you had a hand in making, and that was this 2007 Guru, right? For all of you who saw or heard of Guru, Victor and all came out blazing saying it had nothing to do with Dhirubhai Ambani, right? It was as if Kangana Ranaut says that emergency has nothing to do with Indira Gandhi, right? So, did you actually do a lot of research on Dhirubhai?
so I read The Polyester Prince. That's the book I read. Guru is also it's very interesting for me because Mani had already started filming Guru because he's always in a little bit of a hurry, and he had a draft. The draft he was not very pleased with, so I kind of cut a long story short. I joined him, and the first thing he asked me was, "Do you think it's commercial?" And the truth is that I don't know commerce from. I mean, it sounds ironical, but I really don't. So I said, I think the film should be a film first, and then whether or not. But what I was sure was that if you're watching a film which is called Guru, then obviously there is a takeoff, and beyond a point, I think the idea of Dhirubhai Ambani is what sort of struck it. दूर कर लूं, बहुत blow आ रहा है क्या? But we left it, and earlier the film had a strong, the Gurumurthy and Ambani war. We realized that the more I went into the nitty-gritties of the business, the more boring it became. Because there's really nothing more boring besides, of course, giving people a message that, oh, there's a film about business, this is how he made money. But what it unconsciously became was, for me, it became an underdog story. What I kind of honed in, and this probably is the commercial film schooling, or which becomes kind of part of you, is that there is a man who comes from a sect in Gujarat, and there is a saying. The saying is, "Jiske sar pe mot, uski kismat mein khot." So that's the caste that he comes from. For that man to be the father of the stock market in India, I think there's something big there. And that is the only way I could sort of keep the drama of the film going. So later we heard, now obviously I don't think Dhirubhai went around Hubli singing songs the way we did in the film and all that. But, but how do you make it sort of palpable? And so I think it started off with that idea. But we went a little beyond it, and after a point, I was not really interested in what happened in real life, because that's also it's very grey. And the criticism can be and was and should be is that this man is the hero. But the fact is, that man is the hero of the film, otherwise that film is not going to work. And that's a big question that we had, Mani sir and I, and he asked me, is is this going a certain way? I only asked him one question: do you want people to come out of the theater saying, "Oh, Guru was something," or do you want people to say Guru was an interesting guy? I think that's the difference between being gut level and cerebral. Are you sort of awed by somebody, or are you saying, "Oh, interesting"? Interesting is the box office death.
That's a major thing. Interesting is box office.
I mean, Sudeep, we are
Absolutely.
always in the search of the interesting, but
So
it has to
true.
work. It cannot just be interesting. Then it's a text message.
So well said. So absolutely well said. And I think you did a absolutely fabulous job. For all of us who watched that closely and watched it a number of times, the kind of story told about India of that time, about India as it became a big magnet for foreign institutional investment. It was a solid story, and it ended so very well with that shareholder conference. Those of you who haven't, I hope I have interested you enough to see that because it is interesting also and intelligent. So that was the aspect, that it was an intelligent man's film. That's why I saw it. But really, it was made so beautifully and spoke from it. I'd ideally like to see you making the next movie called Boss, which has this Subramaniam chap telling us that you should work for 90 hours.
Yeah, that's my next villain.
and making him a underdog, right? Okay, so we go back in this because Victor, having made all these great movies, is also a very serious student of Hindi cinema. And so, Victor, that question, what's the movie you will say defines Hindi cinema?
Amir, like I was telling you earlier, there's a film companion had asked me once to name top 5 films, and it took me some time because how do you say top 5 in a history of film which is great, and then and we all want to, especially if our name goes to it, we want to sound smarter and more intelligent than we are. At least I do. So I thought about it, and then I realized that there are so many usual suspects in Hindi film. Or I mean, it was Indian film, but my top film was Mughal Azam. Because I really don't think that there's a film which encapsulates Indianness the way Mughal Azam did. And I mean, of course, my other films were Jalsa Ghar, The Usual Suspect, of Pyasa. The Jalsa Ghar, I think it's an incredibly beautiful film. It's an elegy, and each time you think of the film, I mean, I think of the film in my sort of because it's really it's poetry, and it's a lament that poetry no longer has place in your life, and that actually is going off in Jalsa Ghar along with the Zamindari in Bengal. So again, you can't do it without a real context. The context, whether it is economic, whether it is what films are prescient, it comes through. But Mughal Azam, for my money, rock solid. And I mean, Dilip Saab, just like a complete, he just straddles that film like a rock star. Every story associated with the film going over budget, Sheesh Mahal, I mean, you've just got to see the film. But the beauty of the film, according to me, is a scene where Madhubala forgives the emperor of India the blame of her murder. Anarkali, I mean, yeah, it's quite a scene. So those things, I think they are Indian. I love Sholay, but I see a lot of Once Upon a Time in the West in it. So I think it's a great Indian Western. But is this an Indian film? Perhaps not, for me.
But tell us that Ghulam Ali, Vade Ghulam
Oh,
Ali story.
that's
Yeah.
actually that's a it's a great anecdote. K. Asif, two three things that I heard about him. One, that he used to smoke. हम लोग ऐसे सिगरेट पीते हैं, वो यहाँ पीते थे. And he used to smoke like that. A man who never had a car, he used to take cabs in Bombay. He went to a builder. He went to Shaporji Palonji to fund this mega film, which this man, nobody knew him, and he wanted Bade Ghulam Ali Khan to sing. And Amma will know it. And Bade Ghulam Ali Khan was, I think he was quite lazy, and he hated the idea of film. Never wanted to be associated, because it was also considered lowbrow art. So despite many sort of things, finally K. Asif managed to get to Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab's house, and I think Khan Sahab thought that he will once and for all end this conversation. And he told K. Asif, मैं गाऊंगा पर मैं पैसे लूंगा. And K. Asif asked him how much, and he said 1 lakh. Wow. And 1 lakh at that point of time, I mean, I don't know whether the equivalent you're the, but it's probably
1960,
like,
so it will
yeah,
be about 15 crores.
15 crores at pop. He didn't bat an eyelid. He had carried I forgot. He had carried the cash. So he started taking the cash out, and there was a checkbook. And this is a man who has come in a cab, sitting in front of Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab and saying, मैं आपको 1 लाख रुपए देने के लिए तैयार हूँ. Now, the honor that this great musician has is that he cannot go back on his word. So filmmaking is not just this small fragment and things. It's also, I always feel that a director's job is an HR job. You're always managing. You're managing somebody, you're managing people, and you're hopefully getting the best out of them. So this is one of the stories of Mughal Azam, which I feel these are all signs of a great film being made, because there are stories associated with the making of the film. Today we live in such a sanitized world that ना तो हमारी फिल्मों में स्क्रीन पे बहुत ज़्यादा कहानी है, और उसके पीछे तो बिल्कुल ही नहीं.
You know, you brought in Dilip Kumar and Meghnad Desai, another very famous economist, called Dilip Kumar the greatest actor ever, whether in India or abroad. But Meghnad does exaggerate. So, he wrote this really brilliant book called Nehru's Hero, and called Dilip Kumar Nehru's Hero. And you've talked about Dilip Saab a lot. So what makes Dilip Kumar special in this context, in this, socio-political, economic concept?
See, I think Meghnad Desai is not wrong at all about Nehru's Hero, because 50s, I think, a young country, a time when we still believed that dams were great things, right? So, but a young country believes in education, it believes in equality, it believes in things that its leaders have spoken about. And I think Dilip Saab ended up being the perfect sort of embodiment of it in film. The other films that we were talking about before that, now whether it was Aan, which is in incredibly radical left perspective, and there is a whole speech. The title of the film, the title card comes on red. The title card of Mother India at the end is red. The blood that flows through the canal, which is Mother India is the ultimate Nehruvian film, I think, is वो उसके खून से सींची हुई है. एक माँ ने अपने बेटे के खून से ये जमीन सींची है. I don't think it gets any bigger or better than that. It's this story will stay with you. It will shake you for a while. But coming back to Dilip Saab, I think even around that time, though the antithesis of it is Pyasa, which is the darkness of the Nehruvian socialism. Jinhe naaz hai hind par wo kahan hai. Actually, that we can sing that song today. But I think in
He didn't mean that. We are not going to sing that song.
I think in Dilip Kumar, a young India found that perfect sort of a figure, He was thoughtful. He was, he was a swashbuckler only in Azad and the Errol Flynn type of film, but otherwise he was always considerate. Uh, I don't remember, and I could be wrong, but I don't remember any film where Dilip Kumar's character is behaving brazenly with a woman. It's only, I think, once the color films began that some of those characters. So there is charm to that, and there used to be some. The hero used to have some sort of a principle, which he was either embodying or he was in pursuit of. Um, yeah. Today we have animal.
Naya
But
Daur-
I mean, I can totally defend animal though.
Yeah.
Purely
I'm
from
sure.
another perspective, because that's an anxiety.
Yeah.
It's the anxiety of the Indian masculine person. It's the anxiety of the Indian male who's feeling back to the wall. There are more women working. There are more women who cannot be ignored, and it does challenge your masculinity, and it can only come back in the popular imagination as this totally as a self-avowed alpha thing. And I mean, it's there. It worked.
But Victor, for me, I don't know about the women, but for me, alpha male would be somebody who would go and give that speech in Naya Daur, talking about how it is, how technology has to be mindful of taking away employment. I mean, it's a very serious speech that you hear Dilip Kumar give. Or the Dilip Kumar in in Footpath. He made this film called Footpath in 1954. You all know it for Shame Gam Ki Khasam, and especially given we discussed Talat Mehmood. But that's the first time there is a serious journalist as the main protagonist. So the other Jununi madman that you talked about and you mentioned earlier, can we hear you talk about Mehboob Khan?
I think Aurat, Aan, Mother India, I think for me, Aan, I understand, like we discussed, Aan as a film today, it hasn't aged very well. It's period, it's set in a certain time. It works largely because of Dilip Kumar's charm, some music. But Mother India, I think that to me is a film which again is like Mughal Azam, a big pillar. And I think we will do better. These are films, I think we can talk about it. I hope we are not boring you. But I do find them inspiring. I think that they are very hard stories to tell. Incidentally, the opening of Mother India and the opening of Diwar are the same. There is a mother who has come to a function where her son, the policeman, is getting an award, but the award is going to the mother because she chose the law over the smuggler's son who died in her arms. And we will hear that story in flashback. I think emotionally that loss, and especially this mother-son relationship, is very similar to Mother India. But I think Mehboob Khan was probably a card-carrying CPM member at the time, and at that time it was also fashionable to be leftist. Let's be honest. Like the time that we were in college, I mean, it was, if you were not left, what were you doing here? So I think what struck me is that we tend to think on these binaries. No? Ye Hindu hai, ye Muslim. Oh, it's a Muslim film director. Oh, it's a Hindu film director. Oh, this one's. But Mehboob Khan, I think, ended up defying all of those definitions. Now, whether it came, I don't know enough about him to know whether it was really his politics. But I think as a filmmaker, he strode across a certain kind of a story which he felt strong about. And coming back to what we were talking about, why is Hindi film industry or any film industry, I mean, Hollywood is up shit creek though, just by the way. They're in a much worse position than us. Is because we probably lost sight of what truly moves us. And another thing which I'm borrowing from a conversation that, again, with Javed Saab, who said that the Hindi films that we all talk of, the filmmakers had all come from some place. Some of them had come post-partition, but they were all in tune with small towns. They were in tune with emotions that work for us as people. Their privilege was yet to come. But there is something there. There is something that we innately understand as stories. And most of it is emotional. So I feel that we have to kind of go back in time to see what is it, whether it is Mehboob Khan, whether it is Mughal-e-Azam, whether it is Diwar. You can't copy those films, but we have to see what is it that was working there. And inevitably it is emotion. In Sholay, this film which is this great extravaganza, there's song, there's dance, there's action, but the one scene which will never leave you with a dry eye is dead Sachin and A.K. Hangal, a blind man who comes and says, "Itna sannata kyun hai?" I mean, you can make 5,000 memes on it, Raho, but the sheer tragedy of a blind man not knowing that his son has arrived in the village dead, that gives the audience and the characters in the film impetus to go and kill Gabbar at the end. So if we look around, we have Gabbars everywhere. Right now, most of them are sitting behind steel and glass facades.
True. You don't have to worry about whether the audience is feeling bored or not. I'm looking at Pupi. If she yawns, I know that we're feeling.
Yeah, same here, because I'm always looking at the most glamorous lady in the audience, and
So that's my barometer, right? And it's slight pressure on you, Pupi. Victor, there is you talked about not being about being leftist at some point. There was this one quote by one economist which said that if you're not a leftist when you're young, then you don't have a heart, and if you are a leftist when you're older, then you don't have a head. Rayan, can we play that Adnan thing? So I'll get to Victor about Mithun Chakravarti in a bit. And that's her question.